All right, we are here. Let's see. Looks like, hi, Carol. We have one person on live. Thanks for joining us. Get started in just a minute. We'll give people plenty of time to start popping in. Hi, Sandra. Thanks for joining us. We're going to get started in just a couple minutes once we give people time to jump in. All right. See a few people trickling in. We definitely want to hear from you all. Let us know where you're joining from today. I'm in just outside Denver, Colorado, Mountain Standard Time. Right, Bend, Oregon. Beautiful. Hey, everyone, as you're joining in, would love to hear where you're calling from. See where everyone's coming in the Bay Area. Nice. Okay, I think with that, Nathan Frank, we can go ahead and kick things off. We'll get us started with a few just intro slides while people continue to join.
Cool. I will share my screen.
Thank you.
All right. Oops. Wrong slides. Okay.
You are.
Angela, you want to get it go?
Yeah. Okay. I'm going to kick things off. Thank you for joining for today's demo day. We're super excited to give you all a first look at CoderPad projects and talk about how it's going to help you hire faster in the AI area. So thanks for joining us today. I'm just going to go through some really quick housekeeping things. I'll be available monitoring the chat. So if you have anything to share, definitely want to keep it conversational. Would love to hear from you all, and we'll have a couple polls throughout to hear from you all as well. It is going to be recorded and shared after the fact, so you can rewatch it and share with any of your teammates who might be interested. Camera and mic, it's automatically off for all the attendees, so you don't have to worry about that. And as questions pop up, feel free to shoot them in the chat, or you can go ahead and pop them in the Q&A. That way, if we don't get through them throughout the webinar, we can make sure to answer any questions at the end or in the follow-ups that we send. And then today's speakers, I'm Angela Romero. I lead demand gen here at CoderPad. And like I said, I'll be monitoring the chat today, the Q&A, and helping facilitate some poll questions. So thank you all for joining. We also have Frank. I'll hand it off to Frank to introduce himself.
Yeah, hey everyone. Frank, located in the Bay Area. Been here at CoderPad a little over 5 years, and lead the product team, and love spending time, breaking down our product and trying to solve customer problems. Nathan?
Yeah, my name's Nathan. I lead the engineering team here at CoderPad. Been a CoderPad customer for 12 years before I started, and love working on a product that really affects the hiring industry.
Awesome. So with that, I'm going to cover just the agenda really quickly so you know what we're going to be covering. We're going to kick it off with some of the hiring headaches that you all are currently facing, and why the traditional methods of screening and interviewing are just causing more headaches. And then we're going to talk about AI as your teammate and not as the enemy. We're going to be talking about evaluating real skills in the age of AI and what that looks like. And then we'll jump into how projects helps with that. And you'll get to see a live demo of the new feature. And then we'll kick it off to some Q&A. All right. And with that, the hiring headaches of 2025, there are many. I'm going to go ahead and kick off a poll for you all before Nathan gets into some things here. So we want to hear from you all what your top challenges are currently with technical hiring. So I just started a poll. I'm going to give everyone a few minutes to submit your answers, and then I'll share those at the end. All right, I see some votes coming through. All right, I can already see who is leading the pack or what challenge is leading the pack. Okay, I'm watching it real time, almost a tie. Okay, a couple more seconds to get your vote in if you haven't already. All right, with that, I'll go ahead and end the poll and show you all what the top challenge with the group is. It's finding qualified candidates with true technical skills. So I'm glad you all are on today because it's going to be very relevant to what we are talking about.
Cool. So I think I'm going to kick it off, and Frank's going to run you all through a demo. So what are the real concerns with hiring? It's there's lots of things, but there's three big ones. One of them, especially in the age of AI, is candidate integrity. We're going to show you in a little bit, but it's extraordinarily easy to solve toy problems at any stage of the interview. And really what this is about is how do I figure out if a candidate really knows what they're talking about, they're using too much assistance, or they're doing a little bit of both. And then this is on this reflects sort of the poll responses. Do the candidates have the skills that they need to do the job in the role that I'm hiring for? And the questions are, what should you be measuring? And our take is really less about solving problems and writing lots of code, either top of funnel or in live interviews, and more in really what developers do on a day-to-day basis, which is they spend most of their time decomposing problems, and lots of time in code reviews and lots of time debugging. We have an on-call rotation here, like most businesses, and a lot of the teams spend a lot of time figuring out what is going on operationally, live, and as products go to market. The other thing, and this is the topic of the webinar, is AI tools are a new tool in the tool belt of engineers. And really, I think what we've found is customers have been, a little bit worried and unprepared on how you measure those proficiencies with AI tools. And we're going to talk about that a lot today. And then the other one is, we very rapidly saw our roadmap change as a bunch of tools came to market, to really embrace features that have AI enabled in them. And so, really being able to assess the ability to, use those tools and integrate it with those tool sets and ship those features is something you absolutely want to measure. And then the other concern is, are you running a good process? Do you have the right process that doesn't scare candidates away, but also do you have a balance where it's deep enough where you're not making bad hires? So it's a push and pull. So the question is, what does that process look like? How can you know when your process is going haywire, and things like that? So really, AI, and I've been writing software for 15, maybe arguably going on 20 years, and I don't think I've seen a bigger change in an introduction of a technology that has changed how developers work in a way that AI has. So really, before, developers were writing code mostly all by themselves, maybe with some help from the internet or colleagues. Solving challenges that are more algorithmic in nature, and really low-level technical skills being the focus. So now that AI has been introduced, with AI tools, developers spend a lot more time generating some code based on either a prompt or a tool that they use, fine-tuning that to work with either the code base they're working in or the greenfield problem that they're solving. They're working more on really real world problems, spending less time writing code from scratch, less time building boilerplate code, and more time really fine tuning it for the problem that they're trying to solve in the business. And really the question that for you all, and the question I ask myself when I'm hiring is, how do we assess candidates for how they will actually be working in the age of AI? So I think the underlying point here is really everybody has had to go back to the drawing board and really reassess how you're evaluating skills with all of these tools that developers are using now. And I think the big scary thing when ChatGPT and a bunch of other tools came to market a couple of years ago is that customers realized the way that they were hiring, which is for the most part, for better or worse, mostly for worse, very academic problems that don't have any real connection to real world problem solving that engineers do on a day-to-day basis. All of these things can be solved in seconds with either LLMs or other assistive tools. So if those tests, you're asking those questions to candidates at any stage in the interview funnel, you're really measuring the wrong thing. That was true before AI was a thing, and it's true, and it's more true afterwards. So this is just a GIF of taking a question in CoderPad and asking an LLM to solve it. And as you can see, a screenshot was pasted in. Within seconds, a solution was spit out by the LLM, and then the problem was solved. So I think this is really, and something that should have taken quite a bit of time for a candidate was solved in moments. And you can see in CoderPad screen, it was copy and pasted in. So I think really the takeaway for y'all here is that you really have to rethink the kinds of problems that you ask candidates and make them much more real world, because toy problems can be solved relatively easily. Problems that are much closer to the business and much deeper are, LLMs can't do anywhere as well with those.
I think real quick back on that, Nathan. I always love this. You call it a GIF, I call it a GIF. We'll say mostly that I'm right, but I think there's a couple of interesting things here. One is to your point, it's not a truly realistic question. It's I think the analogy that we often talk about internally is it's like asking an accountant a question that they use a calculator on. It's not asking them to balance the books. It's asking them to add up a bunch of numbers. And so it's not an awesome reflection. And let's be honest, never was. But I think there are a couple interesting points. One, I think please do note that we did track when the person left the ID, and that's kind of what we're trying to highlight there, and that they came in and pasted. But also understand there's not even a fancy prompt here. There's just simply when we tested this screenshot, within this screenshot, because it was such a simple problem, it had all the instructions and all the code. And so the LLM had the full context, had the full understanding of the full problem. Even just simply having a longer set of instructions that goes below would be a limitation to the LLM. But in this case, being able to see all of it. And to be honest, you could do this on your computer. You could do this on your phone. I think sometimes with internal testing, we use phones and see how gameable all of this is. And so it's just a good reminder. One, I guess, just to share with the audience, we do go through a fair amount of rigorous testing as we look at our questions and our products and try and put ourselves in the minds of these candidates who might be doing the right thing or might be looking to do the wrong thing. But then also, it's not simply in many ways locking things down of like, well, can we just put somebody under the microscope and to understand what they're doing? In many ways, I think the point of all of this is we should be asking better questions.
Thanks for highlighting that, Frank. I think this is a really great illustration of how AI has fundamentally changed how we have to think about crafting questions for candidates. And these questions, like Frank said, these questions have always been bad. It's just how bad they are now underlined and highlighted by how quickly they can be solved by LLMs. So that's a good lead in to this, Frank. And when we say traditional coding challenges, you may hear Leetcode in the market. So there's a site, if you're unaware, called Leetcode, where a lot of people that are trying to get into to software engineering, it's normal for them to go through Leetcode, spend tens, if not hundreds of hours solving those types of problems to prepare for uh, all of the interviews. The big three for a while were just doing Leetcode type interviews. So when we say traditional coding challenges, we mean those types of things. So these are all algorithmic puzzles. These test memorization, not problem solving. Memorization is not an important skill for engineers. Problem solving is. So I mean, you can absolutely hire somebody who is amazing at memorizing all of the Leetcode solutions and can run you through a solution in an interview really, really quickly. That has very little connection with how they will do on a real world problem. So you can hire those people, but there may not be any connection to how they can actually solve your problems internally. And like we said, you saw in the last GIF, sorry, Frank, AI can solve all of these instantly, and it takes no effort. You can do it on your phone. You can screenshot it on your phone, throw it in an LLM. It's solved immediately. You can do it in a million different ways. So it's multiple choice questions are crushed in seconds. All the Leetcode type coding challenges are absolutely trivial for AI. And I think the thing that Frank hit on really briefly was that if all of the instructions are compact enough to fit into a screenshot or a small amount of text, when it's clear and visible, it can be solved relatively easily, especially in like a single pad environment where you have a single file question. And so I think the underlying point here is that these are absolutely compromised. These were bad questions to ask that didn't give you much signal before AI was a thing, and now it's completely broken those types of questions. So moving on a little bit. Talking about what we do, we're really delivering a much more realistic, and what we mean by realistic is something that matches the developer experience that they have in their job on a day-to-day basis, much better than any competitor in the market. We have a amazing candidate experience. It's feedback we get all the time from engineers who use the platform. We provide a realistic and familiar and testing environment. And what we mean by realistic is we give developers tools that are as close to what they would have on their laptop or their desktop to actually write code at your job. All of our projects are based on VS Code. If you know what that is, it is the most popular IDE in the world. And the great thing is it just works. We have some of the biggest companies in the world using us at high volume, hundreds, if not thousands of times a day. And I think we pride ourselves on operational excellence and no hiccups within interviewing. And so I think the thing to tie all of this together is, what is broken is algorithmic, simple toy problems that are Leetcode problems. And what we deliver is an environment where you can ask project-based questions that mimic real-world problems that actually give you the signal that you need. And now, Frank, I think you're going to demo projects.
That's right. So this is my favorite part, always showing off a little bit of the product. So here we are within our screen product. Again, we have 4 products with 2 core hiring products. Our screen product, which is generally used upfront for asynchronous assessments, and then our interview product, which is then used for virtual technical on-sites. And so what I have here is a front-end developer test that I've built, and we have in here one of our project's questions that will be available to you upon release of again this feature, and then we'll have content to bring this to life, whether you want to use our questions out of the box or our projects out of the box, or whether you want to maybe use this as a template and then kind of tweak it to fit your own specific use case, which, to be honest, we always encourage you to do to the extent that you can. It provides that extra kind of extra candidate experience of really showing off your brand and your identity. But here we have a couple new settings that you don't, for those of you very familiar with our environment, these are not yet live unless you're in our beta. So we have the AI assist. Again, this is in a common everyday developer's workflow is the use of AI. And so what we've done here is under our general guidelines around we want this to be a very realistic environment and to be able to measure the skills that somebody actually uses each and every day. We want to round it out and bring in the tools into our project environment, as well as we want to monitor. So the same monitoring that we were just showing off a few minutes ago with the GIF are still resident here within our projects. And yeah, so some of the same features in terms of different languages available, and then copy paste blocking, webcam proctoring, and so on are all here. And so again, I guess the point that we want to make is that it's still the overlying test infrastructure that you know and love, but then within that we have allowed you to ask this different, deeper kind of question. So what that literally looks like, and so I've taken this front end React example, and I've here it is within the live environment. I'm also keeping an eye on, I might have to open up just do a little bit of demo magic here on the fly. I'm seeing I'm about to run out of time here because I've opened it up prior to, so why don't I just go open up a new fresh environment. This is where you would be able to go through as a candidate. Again, refreshing our timer here. So this is the experience that a candidate goes through when they're loading the environment. What you see on the screen is a full environment that has multiple files and folders and ability to browse them, a problem statement that is befits this type of project. It reads and looks more like a product specification, which is something that a developer is very familiar with. And then you see an ability to render. In this case, this is a web page. And the task at hand, which we believe is realistic, is asking the candidate here to add different accessibility features or functionality to this web page. And so it's something that we honestly are very familiar with within adding accessibility features for different candidates within our own product and also on our web pages and so on. And so we wanted to choose something that, again, a front-end developer might be asked at any one of your companies as well. And so that's kind of the core left-hand side where, again, files and folders, an ability to look at the code or contents of any specific file, and an ability to see the output or the rendering of this web page or this web application. And down below are different developer tools, ability to install packages and so on. Again, this is a very familiar candidate environment that is based on the most popular IDE on the market, VS Code. And ultimately, our goal here is to replicate, again, those same tools that somebody has at hand. And if you're wondering what this on the side is we've also brought in AI. And so, over the course of maybe actually working through this project, I might say, what are the top accessibility requirements when building a web page? I probably take the second to ask something a little bit better, but what you can see is, yes, it does fully interact with LLMs. We are right now, this is coming with a baseline ChatGPT integration, but we are also adding in, as we've recently done, you should check it out if you haven't, to our interview product, we're adding in Anthropic's Claude, we're adding in Meta's Llama, and also Google's Gemini to give the full suite of AI tools that a developer is familiar with. And ultimately, again, somebody would work through probably prompting the LLM in some way. We do believe that there's a skill set around AI proficiency that Nathan mentioned. And we record all of this as part of our playback. So you can see everything from what did they ask the LLM, how did they ask the LLM, how do they interact with it? Did they just copy and paste code blindly? Did they try and tweak it or reprompt in some way? And then see them actually work through the exercise as you do currently within our playback. And so all of that, again, is under what we want to do is bring all the tools in here, but then give you the full transparency of how somebody uses these tools. And ultimately, that then rolls up into a full report. Again, we want to make sure that the workflow works for you in the way that you're you are familiar with Screen nowadays in terms of we have the auto grading and all the evaluation features that come with this fully featured project. So you can understand not only can you send it out, but then you can also understand, certainly from a hiring manager and a talent perspective, we're scoring it, we're understanding it, and did it pass all the tests, or did it not? And so how do you understand both their final product, the output, but then again, being able to watch the playback to maybe even dive in deeper, ask thoughtful questions as you move them onto the onsite. And so ultimately, these are the key attributes of the end-to-end workflow in terms of what a project is, and again, what you will have as part of your product package here, and roughly a month from now. Nathan, I'm going to kick it back to you.
All right, let me share again. See how quickly we can do this. All right, cool. So what you just saw is a very early version of projects. It is the most realistic interviewing tool on the market, where you can build not toy problems for candidates to solve, but real world problems that absolutely embraces AI as a normal part of the developer workflow. And it assesses AI proficiency, which is extraordinarily important for engineers now, and it's going to be even more important over time. We've got 25, 30 developers in the team. I would say 95% of people use AI today, and the people who are straggling are catching up. So I think this is something that you absolutely have to assess for in the interviewing process, and the product does it extraordinarily well in a way competitors do not. And it tests actual skills, not toy problems. And the great thing, and we're in the middle of interviewing people today, it allows you to create a project that starts, maybe very simple, and you build on it over time, instead of having, screening that is a bunch of toy problems and then maybe some live interview questions that are maybe a little bit more realistic. It actually allows you and enables you to create a project for candidates to complete all the way from top of funnel to your last live interviews. Frank, you want to talk about these a little bit?
Yeah, I guess what we wanted to pose a little bit side by side as we talk about the process is, if you've incorporated a screening solution into your overall interview process, then it looks like that basic middle row where you see there's an upfront call, there's an async test. Within that async test, you can see the two boxes. Multiple choice questions is what the MCQ means, and then as well as these data structures and algorithmic, fairly toy problems, as you know, to use your terms, Nathan. Very very simplistic type of coding challenges, and then proceeding on to a deeper on-site interview with potentially likely a systems design discussion, all and then rolling all of that into the final decision. Where we see the market has not is going, but has gone, is towards the bottom, more of an AI-centric process. And so even for those who are not fully able to commit to actually embedding AI fully into their end-to-end interview process and incorporating it, in every single interview, at the very least, what we are seeing are at least projects. And so, going back to our demo a few minutes ago when we were looking at the projects, at the very least, the left-hand side without the AI tab. But I guess where we would encourage you is to actually turn on that AI tab to fully mimic that realistic environment. But this AI-centric process at the bottom shows a full project that's, again, realistic and auto-graded, and then leading on to a deeper, more effective discussion as you go into your on-sites.
Thanks, Frank. It looks like Adam popped a question in the chat. Might be a good time just to loop that through, asking about if there are any C++ examples.
We're working on that. So yes, right now, the reason that it's in beta is we are currently adding additional questions and additional examples, both front end React as we were pointing out. So we have a couple actually already produced, these fully functional projects, and then we do have each of the C languages: C++, C#, C, and a couple other similar languages that are up next. And so, yes, we will have them.
Great. So continuing on a little bit as we wrap up, I think really the two products we have are Screen and Interview. What Frank demoed was Screen with projects. These are all auto graded. When this goes out to GA, we'll have auto grading playback. All the features and functionality you're used to in CoderPad, and it's really built to solve realistic real world challenges. And then we have CoderPad Interview is really building upon that to really have a deeper discussion built upon the projects. And the questions you're trying to answer, or engineers are typically trying to answer for good signal interviews, is can you collaborate well with a team? If somebody can't work well on a problem with a team member, it's usually not a great sign. Can you make trade-offs? Can you think a little bit bigger? Can you expand upon some ideas that are either seeded internally early, or ideas that are started from an LLM that you can build upon? And can you really review and explain and debug code? I mean, developers spend I would say, close to half of their time reviewing, debugging, and explaining code, and especially starting with something that's AI generated, and being able to both expand upon that and then review it and explain it. So these are our two products, and I think from end to end, what we bring is a consistent candidate experience, all the way from top of funnel screening, starting with that top of funnel project, all the way down to deeper live interviews, all powered with a variety of AI tooling and also insights. So we did the demo already.
Yeah, and so I guess to reemphasize some of the points from the top are we are definitely seeing this shift in workflow. By workflow, certainly we mean using different tools, but within that, we like to talk about it's less of a code writing authorship and more of a code editorship. And I think for those of us who play with these tools on a daily basis, we often find that whether it's producing slides for this very own webinar to other content pieces and so on, it is very much this blending together. It's not simply one prompt and asking the AI to produce a 50-page article and posting it to your website. Would definitely not advise you to do that. But it is, how do you blend together and use it as a collaborator? And so within that, ultimately each of the subcomponents of what somebody does on their daily basis changes. And so, the headline at the top in terms of less just pure writing and writing from scratch. And again, unless you're building brand new products, you generally are hiring somebody to come in to look at an existing code base and to add to that code base. And so a lot of this review and debugging and editing that maybe were in the background and we weren't formally calling primary use cases for interviews, I think are becoming more of a primary use case and the skills to highlight over the course of an interview. As well as, some of the other things listed here: systems thinking, decision making, tool selection, knowing which AI tools to use when and so on. As well as I think we understand there's a very real skill around prompting, or really I think there's a broader term of how do you give the LLM enough context, whether that's through a prompt or whether that's adding files, or whether it's you're trying to cheat and you are simply screenshotting. That is providing enough context. And in many ways, you don't want to grant too much context. It just needs to be, as we found, as with our own tests, just the right amount. And ultimately, this latter step around output verification, like understanding what it's giving you, and it kind of wraps back around to the top bullet. And so these are the skills that actually matter now. And so what we encourage you is to, in the outlines of these more realistic problems, actually highlight, and these are the things to focus in on test over the course of your discussion with your candidates.
I think I might segue before we get to the last couple of slides, because Adam had a couple interesting questions that I think will keep the conversation moving well, because he was curious about how we evaluate a candidate's interaction with AI and what metrics we look at. And he mentioned AI responses to the same prompt can be scholastic. So how do we ensure the candidate experience is consistent?
Stochastic.
Stochastic. Thank you.
Yeah,
The
not
last.
non-deterministic, but rather produces probable but different outputs every time.
Thank you.
I guess I'll take a stab at this, and Nathan, feel free to chime in. But evaluating a candidate's interaction with AI, and I love to follow up on the metrics. And so I think what we're finding, so keep in mind we've had AI running in our live interviews for the past, gosh, Nathan, what, 3 years now?
Yeah.
And so we have about 30,000 interviews under our belt, and so and we see varying levels of adoption from mandating and actually testing AI skills to having AI just be available as an option to candidates to, of course, maybe the other parts of the market which just simply are saying, hey, keep AI out. And we are seeing that proportion shift more towards, including AI, and then we are seeing those who want to explicitly test AI grow. And so that's really what you're talking about in terms of evaluating their skills. And so I think there is certainly this qualitative component, and qualitative sometimes is a dirty word, but in many ways, when you're thinking about things like decision making or understanding problem solving, there is this structure and framework that you use, but it is in many ways like not very quantitative in fact, and it's not, are they adding in the exact right prompt and you were looking for these specific words, but more, are they following specific rule formats to prompts? Are they covering a role, set of instructions, covering a goal? Are they, to what level do they even understand? I think this is something we've seen is some people just literally don't understand to use these tools. Presumably when you're using words like stochastic and so on, you fully understand, and you're on the full side of you understand the limitations and also how these work. But candidates who are unable to even just understand and how to manage the context. And so it's everything from adding context and prompting in the right mechanisms, but also knowing when the context is getting polluted or the context window is getting filled up, and when to reset and add in a new prompt. And these are, I guess, behaviors and skills, actions that we see over the course of an interview. In terms of metrics, what we and I guess ways that we've, by the way, prototyped and so have some things working on for the future are taking somebody's interaction with an LLM and actually throwing that into the AI and asking for some sort of evaluation of that. Like how nuanced, we have a bunch of good examples of interacting with an AI where as a human has done and labeled that, and bad examples, and then, where does this one lie in terms of classification? But along with that, there's other metrics, so true metrics. We are looking at the number of tokens that somebody's using, and being able to manage that, being able to understand their how they're interacting with the LM, how they're adding in, are they adding in true documents and forming a mini RAG system? Things like that are what we ultimately measure. And quite honestly, this is breaking new grounds. If you want to get in and talk details, Adam, would love to dive in with you. Nathan, anything else to add on to that?
Yeah. One other thing to add, like the way I think about this is how can you determine whether an engineer with a real world problem in your roles is actually using AI effectively? And the answer is, are they using it to solve their problem? And so we're working with a variety of customers to build, AI forward interviews where literally in the instructions, it's very broad, and the solution and what needs to be produced is straightforward and clear, but how they get there is not. So really, I think what we're building to help customers, and what we're doing in our interviews today, is really giving a clear set of instructions that sort of guides the candidate to the output, but really assesses, and can you get from something that is very high level to a solution with an LLM and actually solve a problem? Because that's how engineers use AI on a day-to-day basis. They start with a broad problem, they start with what they think success looks like, and they work their way from top to bottom. So that's to answer your question, how do you evaluate a candidate's interaction with AI? Is can they solve the problem with a heavy nudge of you need to use AI to build this out with us?
And to answer the latter question of ensuring a consistent candidate experience. So there's a couple of tools that we have at hand, one of which is the ability to add in a very specific system prompt based on a specific question. And so this is a feature that we recently have launched with an interview and that we also going to be packaging within our Screen projects. And so within being able to provide that additional layer of guidance in terms of a system prompt does help to make it from less, this magic 8 ball of you don't know what you're going to get to a more structured output or a more structured experience. Quite honestly, the other thing that we found in working with our customers is best practice is you don't send in a interviewer who's completely unprepared, who has as much knowledge about the question being asked as the candidate. And so what we are finding best in class is to actually run mock interviews internally to actually understand the range of different paths that a candidate might take. And yes, there's always the 10% vastly different, and maybe that's 10% genius or 10% terrible. You never know. But within the bell curve, there are generally certain patterns that you tend to see as you go through with candidates, and as you see with mock interviews. And also going through and conducting this mock also allows the interviewer to know when are those right points to kind of guide somebody back. In many ways, you could just think of this as an old school case type of interview. Walk me through an example, and we're going to problem solve together. But what we, with the tools at hand, is it's more realistic. It's not just talking through randomness. It's okay. Well, how do we problem solve in a very real fashion, and maybe even put cursor on the screen and type together. And so again, in that same way that you would train somebody to conduct a case interview to provide feedback back to a candidate, how much coaching and guidance. And so it's not simply to just sit there, with two fists on your face like this and just watching somebody. Like that's not the point. The point is to talk and work together. And so how you control for this is, there's some tools at hand, but also honestly, interview or training and preparation.
Hopefully that answered your question, Adam. All right. Fantastic. Glad it answered your question. If you have any more, please follow up. We've got some time for Q&A. So really, I think we're positioning ourselves in the market for you to be able to assess real world experience, both with generic problem solving and heavily using AI, which is something engineers do on a day-to-day basis. I think the things that I would love for you all to take away today is that Leetcode type questions really is solving for memorization of things and doesn't really give you the signal that you need about problem solving on the job that you really need to be able to make a good decision. And I think having projects, and we hopefully convincingly demoed that you can build these projects in our environment, and they've really showcased the challenges that your team have on a day-to-day basis in a realistic way to give you the signal that you need. And I think the one thing that people often forget is if you have a realistic experience that is project-based as close as possible to what they would do on day one, both in environment and problem solving, that is a huge win for a candidate experience, and they can really learn more about what is it going to be like to work with you day one if we make the decision to move forward together. And I'm sure everybody's aware of it. A bad process is a great way to scare off candidates. What candidates need is a realistic, relevant assessment that is as close to on the job as possible to really win top talent. And I think we've built the tools to enable you all to do that. And I think now we have time for some Q&A. Angela?
Yeah. Thank you. We will go ahead and open it up. If you want to send it to the chat, that's fine. And feel free to also use the Q&A feature in the webinar if you'd like as well. And then we will be sending some follow-up resources to you all after the webinar. So if anything comes up, you'll definitely have a place to to raise your hands there about anything. I think my question I'd be curious about, I know you both sort of alluded to it on the call, is around when customers and even new non-CoderPad customers can expect to see this out in the market if they're excited to hop on it.
A month from now. So yeah, we have our launch, and we do have some customers in beta, and so yeah, if you're interested, if you're a current customer and want to get your hands dirty, please let us know.
Yeah, please do. With that, I will go ahead and launch actually another poll, because if you would like to learn more, if you're a customer and you want to sign up for the beta program, or you just like to see more of this as it relates to some things that you have going on today, some hiring, please let us know. So I'm going to go ahead and launch a poll now. And this is the best way to notify us if you want some more information about it. And then, yes, expect to see in the next few weeks, as we lead up to the official launch, some more resources coming out. Anyone who's been on this webinar, you'll definitely be invited to another webinar when the product actually launches, so you can hear from hopefully a customer who's used it in their environment and has some fun use cases to share, so you can see it in a real world example as well. Awesome. I'm going to keep the poll up for just a few more seconds. And then if we don't have any more questions, I think we can give folks back a little bit of time in their day. There we go. And that poll has been ended. All right. Well, thank you all. Thanks for submitting questions, for engaging with the poll. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Frank, for facilitating this. Really appreciate you all hopping on live.
Thanks, y'all.
All
Thank you,
right.
everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye, everyone.